Hello and welcome back to the Playbase. I am incredibly excited. I've wanted this conversation to happen for a very long time. I finally got Jennifer in the studio, just one-on-one. Jennifer Leonard, welcome to the Playbase show.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Oh my God. If you guys listened to the episode that we had with all of my analysts or the majority of our senior team, you saw Jennifer and you heard her in her glory. And I know you just got a little taste and you were like, I need more. And I was like, I need more too. What you may not know about Jennifer is that not only is she an incredible professional, but how she ended up in this field of ABA and ended up at the Playbase working with us. And for me, it was a dream job, what you're doing when I started it, and getting to support you and then watch you fly in this role as a behavioral consultant in a school setting is just incredible. I think what everyone probably really wants to hear and what I love to sit in with you is your story, who you are, how you got to where you are in your life. Can you share with us a little bit?
Of course. Hi, guys. And Francis, I want to say thank you so much again for this opportunity. I know it's been a few months we've been trying to do this. But again, my name is Jennifer. And it's funny because my friend called me the other day. She was like, you know who you are? And I'm like, what am I? She was like, you're the behavioral girl. And I was like, yes. And then I had ended up doing like a activity for class. And I think I ended my thing and calling it the behavioral girl. So I think I might continue to keep calling myself the behavioral girl.
Oh, cool.
Everything that I am, or I believe everything that I define myself as, is everything behavioral. Like I try to look at life in ways of pattern, but yet in the ways of compassion, because we all do things for a reason. And once we understand the reason behind of it, we are able to look at it and view it differently. I am Jennifer. I am a mom of 5 beautiful children.
Five beautiful children. That is, when I say 3, people are like, wow, 5. I love that.
Yes, I go to school. This is my last semester. So
woo! Yeah, you're almost there.
I'm so excited. This journey has been a long one for me. And it's crazy because you think about it, not trying to share my age. I mean, I graduated high school in 2010, and now we're in 2026, and I'm just like, yay, I'm graduating, getting my master's. I'm like, I maybe should have did this like a couple years ago, but life has its journey.
Everything in divine timing, as it's supposed to be.
Very true. There's that process of just being like, oh my goodness, I'm almost done. I'm almost at the dream job where I get to, be able to be there for other people, the way that I always wanted to be there for other people. So to pretty much start my journey off, I originally went to school, because I always say school. I originally went to school to be a social worker, because I had a social worker. I wasn't the best, teenager in the world. So I had a social worker who kind of sat me down and who kind of talked to me about, life and, tried to make my life a little bit better. So I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a social worker. So that's why I got my first degree in is being a social worker, so that I can get children out of bad situations and put them into good situations. Like I wanted to be the change in somebody else's life the way that she was, for me. And like I said in the podcast before, of course, I got married and then I had my son. And then I think my son, may have been like 18, 19 months, almost 3, I want to say. Or is it 24 months? Like, how do months go? Like, after 12 months, I'm like 1 or 2. People still go over months and months and months. But I think it was about 18, 19 months, I recognized that he was not, doing what other kids would do. Like we will normally say, typical kids would do. Like he wasn't, doing the eye contact, or whenever other kids or other people try to come, towards him, he would kind of like shy away. And then the biggest thing was that there was no communication at one point or another. Like he was just like crying or banging his head on, different things when he wanted certain things. I remember going to the doctor, and the doctor was like, well, language develops and all these different things at a certain time. And again, not to ever make anything about race or anything, but in my community, when you think of disabilities and those kind of things, it's not a knowledgeable thing. It's just like, I'll give them time. They all kind of grow in their own speed. So everything is okay,
Yeah.
So there was just like this lack of knowledge of there could be something really wrong, with your child, I remember what kind of hit me is I took him to daycare and they were just like, something's really off with him. Something is wrong. We don't know exactly what it is that's going on, but I think you might need to get him tested, get him looked at, different things like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. So this is when he was close to about being 3 years old. And so the doctor had told us to go to Child Find. So we had went to Child Find and they did a whole evaluation on him. And they were like, yeah, he has autism. And I was just like, what is that? I need you guys to explain to me what that is.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, they gave me their explanation for it. And then they were like, I need you to go see a neurologist. So we went to go see a neurologist. And I felt like I was like lost in this big world because it was just like you ask people to explain something and they explain it and they don't even recognize that you do not understand at all what they're saying.
Right.
And that's why I was like, one thing I do love about, ABA and learning it in a certain kind of way, even teaching it, is trying to get it to a point where people understand. Looking at it in a cultural aspect, because the way that you may have been raised, completely different the way that I have been raised. Yeah. So we can't talk to each other the same exact way. We genuinely just can't, So learning how to explain it and talk about it in a way that the next person could understand. And I just remember just walking out, and you have to understand, like being in a Caribbean, growing up in a Caribbean household, even with, my ex-husband, he was just really big, like, yeah, it's not true. That's not a real thing. He's fine. He'll be all right. Not my boy. And so I felt like I went through this journey, the beginning stages of his journey, by myself. But what made it so much harder was that now that he was diagnosed, it was almost like, what do I do? And then you're presented with, now he needs to go to school. Now he needs to be in speech. Now he needs to be in OT. And it's just like, now I have all these different things that needs to get done with no real support behind it. That's why I say, in this field, when it comes down to parents with kids with special needs, it is so important for them to have a village, to have a support system, because it comes at them so fast. Even if it's a single parent, or if it's a parent, or if it's parents that are married together, they may have different viewpoints on it, and it's hard on both ends, or shall I say on both sides of the actual spectrum. And I just remember just being so angry, and I remember being angry at, at God. I remember being angry, with myself. I remember just being like, when you become a parent, you don't think that, oh, I'm so excited that my kid has special needs. You kind of just think of, the TV version of, this great little bundle of joy and all these different things. And I took his disability to a certain extent as a bad thing in the very beginning, and like a whole nother thing, to happen. And it weighed a very, very, very big toll on my marriage. And so in the midst of our marriage, that was already still a little rocky. We end up, finally calling it a quits. And the disability, I want to say, was a little bit more than, what my husband could handle, because my son at this rate, who's like 3, maybe 4, is not talking, is, getting kicked out of every single daycare that he went to. Or I feel like I remember we had took him to, so he was at daycare, he was playing with a kid, and then he picked up a rock and he threw it. And it's just kids being kids, but the school knew he had ASD, and they were like, oh, well, since he's autistic, and he's violent, we can't have him here anymore. And I was just like, okay, no problem. And this is before me knowing a lot better than what I did. And I say this because I think about all of the other parents who this stuff is being put in front of them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just like at one point or another, I had a full-time job. Now I had to get a part-time job because, he's able to go to school, but who's going to watch him in the after school, So we go from having a full-time job now to having, a part-time job. And I remember at one point or another just sitting down and, my son just needing, and I did not know how to help him. Like he would make little utterance here, or he'll guide my hand to what he needs, and just different things like that. And I remember, oh my goodness, I remember it was a couple days before he turned 5, and he was like, "Mommy, I want juice."
What'd you just say?
I was like, what? Wait. Say that to me one more time. And it was just like, he looked at me and I was like, you can have whatever you want. Like, just tell me all the stuff that you want.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, you know, at like 5 years old, you know, people would be like, oh, well, we're teaching him how to do this, or we're teaching him how to do this. And I would listen to, you know, some of my coworkers who would be like, oh, my kid talk too much, and my kid don't leave me alone, da, da, da. And in my brain, trying to be strong, I'm like, I wish my son would say something to me. And these are things, you know, like I was so like, but then he started talking. I remember texting his teacher, and I'm like, I got a little surprise for you. Because his birthday's in November. So now they're on like Thanksgiving break, all Christmas breakish or whatnot. And I'm like, he's talking. And she's like, oh, okay, Jennifer. All right, you'll find out. So I remember him going back to school. And she texted, she's like, he's talking. And I'm like, I know. In my Francis voice, I know. And I just remember, like, from that moment on, it just kind of became, you know, how can I build him up? How can I develop him? How can, you know, I make things for him, you know, a lot better? And so I remember my friend, he was like, you know what you should do? You should become an RBT. And I was like, what is that? He's like, he explained to me what it was. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I mean, it'll make it better for my son, you know, whatnot. So I gathered up just a lot of the information, and I had an amazing BCBA who taught me like the ins and outs of it. And I fell in love with it. When I say I fell in love with it, I fell in love with every kid that I saw, every kid that she used to help me do my assessments. Like, it was a nerve-wracking field, but I was so excited because it it opened me up on how I can go ahead and I can help him. So I am here. I could tell you my journey through the ABA field, but that's just genuinely like a little bit of a recap of how I initially got into ABA. And I told myself from that moment on, it's just that I would be the voice, you know, for people, that I will help people, you know, in my neighborhood, or I would help people around the world, or I will do whatever it is that I can do to possibly help people who have gone through or is going through, you know, the journey that, you know, I went through. And it makes me so sad, like I tell you from before, it's just like, it's a lack of knowledge, and it's a lack of caring. It's almost like being another number. It's almost like, oh, okay, well, this is what you have to deal with. Just deal with it, accept it, and just kind of keep going. Because again, nobody wants to hear your sad story, which is true. But at the same time, your words can make a person, or your words can break a person. And we have to be mindful. We have to think about it in the professional field, that something that we even consider to be small as a joke can be something that can hit so hard and make a person just give up.
There are countless things that you mentioned that I could feel in my body, like that were palpable in my body. I think your experience as a mom, the angry, lonely, confused, feeling lost in a world of not knowing how to support your child, which I don't think there's anything scarier for a parent than to know that your child needs something and not know how to support them.
Mm-hmm.
But then to find this path to not just support your child, but then make a decision that this is how you're going to support other people's children, other families, other parents, other educators, other systems. And I really feel deeply that we all have some sort of calling, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps multiple callings. And sometimes the toughest situations, from that we rise into a calling, you know? And it feels like you had to walk through this to be the version of you that shows up for these kids, for these parents, caregivers, teachers. Because you're like, I am you.
Yes.
And you are, although different, like me, like my son, like this, this validation and recognition of another's experience. I know that so many times in my career, I've come across a cultural barrier of lack of acceptance or no access to information or limited resources that puts someone at a disadvantage or in a position of shame, guilt, deep frustration, feeling lost, feeling helpless. What really pulled you into the direction that you went into from that feeling? Because I feel like somebody listening might be there, or somebody might send this to someone who is there. Was it an intuition? Was it a person? Was it a repetition? Was it like, an aha moment? Was there something that really, aside from your friend telling you about the RBT position, what kind of signs and signals were you getting that led you down this road of there's a way and I'm gonna find the way. I'm gonna be the way eventually.
So this is like, hopefully I don't bust out into tears at this part, because this is this is the lowest. Because I remember at this point, like, my marriage had fell apart. I didn't know what to do with AJ. I didn't know, with my kid. I didn't know, even with like my job, because I was the person who was always at work, and then my son got diagnosed. So I had to, cut down to part-time, and everybody was looking at you, you're not dependable and all this other stuff. And I wanted to end my life, and I wanted to end AJ's life, because I was like, I don't want him to live in a world like this. And I remember the day that I knew I was going to do it, because I'm like, I'm planning this. Like, for instance, when I tell you in my brain I was done for, I was like, I was done. Life is not worth living, And I remember the day specifically, my grandmother, she was watching him, and I had to be there by 6 o'clock to pick him up. And I remember just sitting in my car, because I had it planned out how I was going to do it. And I remember just sitting in my car, and I fell asleep. I think it was just because I was naturally tired, or maybe I don't know what happened. I say God is a good God, but I remember kind of falling asleep, and in my sleep and in my dream, and the day that I was going to end us, I saw my son, 15, 16 years old, playing basketball, and he was happy. And I saw myself, and I had like a suit on, and I was a little bit more in a professional world, and it was just almost like, you're going to make it, And so when I woke up, it was like, okay, now I have to push. Now I have to fight. I have to make a better life for him. I have to make a better life for me. I can't dwell in what I feel. I cannot dwell in what I'm going through. So I remember kind of just like, and it was, for instance, when I say it was clear as day, like I saw us, I got out of the car, I grabbed AJ, I gave him a hug, we went to go get cheeseburgers, and we went home and we ate cheeseburgers. And yes, my friend had opened me up to, the ABA field, and as hard as it is, and a lot of times as a parents, we say this all day, my drive that pushed me, that motivates me to continue to keep going is him. It's him, and it's all of, my other kids. Even with every setback, it is me wanting to provide for them a better life than I had, or a better life than this world says that they deserve. So I'm not too sure if I answered that question properly, but I think for me, I would have to say it's them. Like, you can't tell me no. Because if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to find another way to do it. And I think there's also this loyalty complex that I have, where it's if I fail or I fail those who are around me, then I'm a failure. And so I picked up this journey to be better for him. And I am loyal to my journey. And I am going to push all the way through because I understand that this is not only for me, but it's also for him. And it's also for all the other people that I need to be loyal to. So hopefully I answered that question. I'm not too sure if I did, but hopefully I answered it. Maybe not. I don't know.
Without any doubt, you did. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that. I think many people have sat in a position of, I know many people who've sat in a position of deciding that life isn't worth living.
Yeah.
And I'm so deeply grateful that God, your angels, whatever you want to call the divine intervention that stepped in, perhaps your son's soul, saying, hey, Mom, look where we go.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we got this together. You know, my spiritual belief or knowing is that we all come here on our own karmic journey. That including our own children, we all have something to work through in this lifetime, something to heal, many things to heal.
Yes. Created with a purpose.
Yeah. And our own journey, our own purpose, our own light to spread. And the fact that you had, well, I am deeply grateful you had that experience because then I got to meet you.
Yes.
And not just meet you. I remember when I met you over Google Meets.
I was so nervous that day.
But I remember when I met you, you have this humble, grounded and grounding energy to you. This unknowing that you know so much, and this deep yearning to learn and grow more, but also this like wisdom, right? You have this dynamic to you. And I remember when I called you to tell you that we're offering you the job, you were like, me? And I was like, yeah. And I know how, I will be honest, like when we were selecting a behavioral consultant to go into schools, it's something I had done in Toronto and in South Florida, but it's not something I had ever, actually, no, I hired internally in my own staff. I never hired an external person to do that. And it's an interesting way to implement the science of behavior, of understanding behavior and being, wow, I think like being an RBT in a classroom is to do a dance, but to be a behavioral consultant is like, I don't know, to orchestrate the entire performance, right?
Yes.
It's a whole other
realm.
Yes. And when Susanna and I sat down and were like, Jennifer, and then I remember bringing you into the school and walking in with you and being in your presence. And equally, your energy is this grounding, calming, but also this powerful presence where I think you create safety for people around you. I don't know if you know that about yourself. You make people feel safe, which is probably why you're very effective. Because
that's a good thing.
You don't walk in with this, I know it all. I'm here to implement the changes that are required in order for the children to be successful. Like, you're not doing that. You're coming in with, hey, what's going on? How can I support you? I'm seeing this. I'm going to share a little bit of this insight, this information with you. You meet people where they are. And I think that that has to do with your life. That has to do with your journey. That has to do with before you met that social worker. That has to do with after you met that social worker. That had to do with your marriage not working out, your child. Like all of these things ground you to the earth to acquire information from human experience.
Yes.
Then you have like this soulful information that comes with wisdom, not from human experience, just like deep-rooted wisdom and knowledge that you're like, I'm going to learn this so that I can help my son.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn everything I can. Why? My motivator is this angel on earth that is struggling, that I cannot tolerate his struggle because his struggle is my struggle. And so I recently had, her name is Lauren Stewart. If you haven't listened to the episode with her, you must. Okay. You will love it. She's a mom who started a bakery in her own kitchen called The Sweet Spectrum. She started the Proud Autism Moms Club. She's just a powerhouse. And she shared her story also and how her child needed to learn language. She's like, so I became an SLP overnight. I learned everything there needs to be known about speech and gestalt. It's like all these things, right? And it's like what we do for our children. And I think it really stems from, I know that there's like some sort of connection that is genetic. But beyond that, there's this energetic connection that we feel with our kids. This like superhero comes out of like, I know zero about this topic and I will know everything there is to know about this, or I will do everything. I will move the car with my bare hands. I will do whatever I need to do for my kid.
Yes.
And look what it created. I'm curious how old AJ is right now.
So AJ is 12, going to be 13 in 2 months.
Okay. So I need to have this conversation with you when he's 15 because I want to know what he's doing and what you're doing because that's what he showed you.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was his soul that showed you.
Blessing.
Right? I think that's, and these are, this is why I do this podcast because I didn't know this about you. And I'm so grateful that you shared such an intimate part of you and your existence and your story, not just with me, but with somebody who's going to hear it and recognize themselves in you.
So I have grown. I mean, I've always been thankful about stuff, but I have grown to be even more thankful. So even in moments where I just don't, I still do. When I walk into a classroom, I can tell you now, Francis, I am absolutely the most nervous person because I'm just like, oh, how's the teacher going to take it? Like, how am I supposed to talk to the teacher? What about the children? I don't want to come off too hard on the children, but I want to show them this love. And yet there's this toughness that needs to happen and, all these different things. And then I kind of revert back where I feel like I want to fight for them. I want to fight for the teacher. I want to fight for the children. How can I make you walking into this classroom worth you getting up every morning to walk into this classroom? How do we make this classroom not too overstimulated for all the children in there so that they want to learn? I find myself even now, as AJ is a teenager, fighting for him to people who just do not understand. And I'm talking about in my own household. I'm talking about in my own circle, even, school, even, out into the world. And it's crazy because I want to teach him so much, but even sometimes I find myself being frustrated where I'm just like, and I know, and the thing about it, like they say, work and home life, they're two different things, where I can be a whole lot more patient with my client and with people I work for. We may not be as patient with our own children.
Of course.
And like, there is this fear sometimes that I have with him, like even when we go into the grocery store, because now you have transitionings where it was just like, okay, I got you through being a child. Now it's the process of, you being a teenager now, and the responsibility of being a teenager. And now we're talking about a man at this rate, like building up a man. Like we go to the grocery store and we get to the cashier and my son would do a quick 180. And I'm like, AJ, turn around and talk to, like, tell her hi, or, give her the money, or give her, certain things. He's like, okay, mommy, okay. And it's just, and it's funny because, again, like I always say, I love, people around me, but because my son can talk and he can articulate and all these different things, they're like, there's nothing wrong with him. Until they actually see that there's different forms of what, the challenges he faces. And they're just like, oh, that's what you mean, So, like, yeah, there's this superhero, complex that I do have, because I want to save the world. And I want to be, yes, and I want to be as loud as I can. And it's funny because I always told myself I am a boy's mom all day. And then God blessed me with 2 girls.
So good.
Right? And I have a beautiful 4-year-old. I have a beautiful 4-year-old who is... She was here before. I don't care what nobody say. If you talk to her, she definitely was here before. And she is so smart and she is so spunky. And then I have my 2-year-old girl who, like I was just telling you, like literally we had a little bit of like a speech variation for her. And then she, of course, burst into all these different words. And I am recognizing how behavior can even help with these 2 little girls. Through different transitions and learning different things. So I was like, I fell in love with this field because it does more across everywhere.
Yep.
And not just only one area. So I was like, wait, I get to be a superhero, not only for the typical, but for the non-typical too. Oh, I love it. And that's why I was like, speaking of, being, and that's the funny thing is because I always saw ABA as RBT, BCBA, that's it.
Yep.
And so when I saw that behavior consultant for schools, I was like, I need this job. I want this job, because as I was working as an RBT, I was working in the schools, and I was in a class where my client literally was sitting there stemming on a puzzle all day, where there was no real teaching happening. And the teachers themselves were not even educated in how to handle behaviors. Right. So what they were doing is not allowing the behaviors to happen. So if they needed to go someplace, or if they needed to do something, they will literally just hand them whatever it is that they wanted them to handle, or they would like, and I'm all about proactiveness and different things like that. But when the proactiveness is truly not helping the kid learn how to truly transition, or truly learn what the word no means, or truly learning that we're going to do this later, but we need to do this first and then do that. But instead you're just doing this just to keep them quiet, and you don't want to deal with them having a tantrum. Like
their behavior is escape dependent.
Yes.
Escape from behavior. Yep.
Yes. My heart was just so angry, because as a parent, we are trusting in the school system to teach our children, not have our children sit in the classroom all day being babysat. And so when I seen, behavior consultant working in the schools, bringing change in the school, I was like, I have to at least try. And when I tell you, I don't know if Susanna told you, but when I had applied, nobody said anything to me for like 2 weeks. So I was like, let me just send a message to kind of nudge a little bit. So I end up sending a message through the back end through, I think it was Indeed.
Yeah.
And she was just like, oh, okay, well, I'd love to do an interview with you. I was like, okay, yes. So it comes time for the interview and my client is still here. Like my client was supposed to leave at a certain time so I could do the interview and my client did not leave. And I was just like, Susanna, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to reschedule this interview. And I was so nervous that she was just going to be like, no, well, since you can't do it, don't worry about it. We don't need it. Like, I was so scared that she was just going to be like, no, we don't need it, da, da, da. But I was like, my client does come first. Regardless of the situation, my client is still here. I need to do what I need to do. I'm not a big person of not putting my burdens on other people. I just can't. So we did the second interview and I remember just talking to her and she was like, okay, she'd tell me a little bit about her being in RBT and just different things like that. So we kind of clicked a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, this is comfortable. I think I got this. But she was like, no, you have to talk to one more person. I was like, okay. So she was like, and yeah, she's like the clinical director of all of it. I was like, in my brain, like clinical director, like I got to go all the way to the top. I was like, oh no. I was like, okay, well, we can do this. And I remember like I had that morning when I say everything was going bad, everything was going bad. Like everything was bad. And I was like, okay, this interview is in 10 minutes. Where in the world am I going to do this interview at? And I don't know if you knew, but I was in the back of like a parking lot with my son in the back sleeping.
I remember your son was in the car. I do remember that.
Because he was supposed to go to school. And I was just like, you know what? You just going to have to see her because mommy really wants this job. Just do something back there. Be quiet. Don't do that. Don't say nothing.
He was great. I remember him being there. I remember you were in the car, and I remember being like, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. And I was just like, I remember, and it was a question that you asked me, like, if you could be a fruit, like, what fruit would you be, or something like that? And
I asked that question?
Yes, she was
That's
like,
so
if you could be any fruit, or if you could describe what fruit you are, what would it be? And I was just like,
somebody actually asked that in a training once, and I was like, what the hell? And then when people went into their answers and why, that's when I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. And I think I threw it in there as like, I wonder what people will say. I don't ask that question anymore. But
lucky that. I was so stunned. And it was crazy because I was like, a banana. And you were like, a banana? I was like, I wonder if that's dumb. And I was just like, as soon as I made that statement, he was like, all right, well, we'll get in contact with you. And I was like, I should have said a different fruit. I was in the car fussing myself out. I was like, I should have said a different fruit. I bet she's going to think I'm dumb, and...
No, I actually think it's a pretty dumb question. So I don't ask it anymore. I didn't even remember that I asked that, but after you said that, I was like, I do remember asking that question. And then I remember hearing it somewhere else.
And so I was just
so
like,
interesting.
I was like, I think I bombed it. But I was like, okay. So that when you told me, when you guys actually called and gave it to me, I was like, no, she must have got it mistaken. Yeah, I was like, you must have got me mistaken. But I felt so blessed because it was like, now I get to make a change here. And that's the thing is like, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it because this whole world needs to change. I'm talking from doctors. I'm talking from nurses. I'm talking about teachers. I'm talking about parents. We all need to change.
Yeah.
And we all need to be more compassionate for people in general. And I think that's one of the things that we have lost a lot of is just the compassion or putting other people first or putting other things first or trying to see things from other people's perspective or how can I help that person to be able to understand. And it breaks my heart. And I was like, I gotta figure out some kind of way how I can change the world by yet not being so disrespectful either. And my thing is just like, if I need to become a BCBA, if I need to get a PhD, if I need to get if I need to get all the titles behind my name for my voice to be heard, guess what? I'm going to get every single thing so that my voice can be heard because
Amen.
We need to change the world.
I want to just say that I resonate deeply with what you're saying. I always thought I wanted to be a psychologist. Still in there. And when I really thought about it, it was like, why? I said, because then I'll be able to create the change.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a phone call with a psychologist, asking who I knew and asking him what he thought about. You know, I had 3 kids, I had a business, about doing my PhD. And he said to me, why would you do that? He's like, you don't need that. You don't need those credentials. It's the part of me that feels like in order for my words to be heard, respected, and taken seriously, that I needed those. And what I really realized so far is that it was just building trust with people to know that where I was coming from was a grounded, compassionate, perhaps knowledgeable, but truly, I really want to help you place. And the compassionate piece that you're referring to, you know me, that's like
everything of who you are.
That's everything to me. And it's missing in so many areas.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, like you said, for children with special needs or for, parents of children with exceptionalities. I think it's just missing.
Mm-hmm.
This element of our common humanness, of you're a human and a soul living this human experience, and living in this world is no easy feat, right? We all have our challenges, or we all have our traumas, our stories, our journeys. But if we hold space for that, for each one of us, we spoke about Chloe before we started, and she watched a show once, and it was talking about scientifically how we're all made of stardust.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things I've told her, but now this is someone who's like talking scientifically. This is what we're made of. And I remember being at the airport with her and her talking to a random person, because that's what she does. And she said, did you know, this person that we were in line with to go through security was a teacher in an elementary school.
Mm.
She's like, did you know that we're all made of stardust? And the look in this woman's eyes was like, her words touched her soul. You could see it. And if everyone could just remember that, we're all made of the same thing.
Yes.
We're all walking through our own path. No 2 lives are equal or the same, but we all have a beating heart.
Yes.
We're all made of stardust. We're all here on our own journeys, and if we could just hold space for that, help, guide. And I think that we share this obviously very common goal of saving the world, changing the world, healing the world. And that's a big driving force of mine. And I know it's a driving force of yours, which is why placing you in the places where we have so far, and there's obviously so much more to come, is like a no-brainer because of who you are, what you stand for in terms of your values, what you are able to give other people, not just in knowledge, but in this grounding and holding space and compassion. Like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you. Like, put me where you can put me. I'm going to do everything I can. When I stand in front of a group of people, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Like, my mission in life is to help as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So in every way that I can, I will do it. Help me help you,
Yes. Where do you need me?
That's what I want. And so I think it's the greatest gift to turn your darkest moments into magical light and to create such deep-rooted meaning, not just for yourself, but for every life you get to touch, because you turned your darkness into light. I think it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Now that you think about it.
I am incredible. Thank you. Oh my God, Jennifer, I love you so much.
So, Francis, I have a slight question for you.
Oh.
I know I've watched it in some of your podcasts of how you kind of became this amazingness. How did you come up with the name The Play Base? Because I remember when I saw it on Indeed, I was like, is this a daycare? Because that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, is this a daycare? So I guess my question is, why The Play Base? Why was that the name of it? And what was your goal behind it? Because I know there's like a million names. I know you probably had a million names that you thought of.
I actually had another name first.
See there? How did you come up with The Play Base?
So when I decided to start my business, it was a very big question. Like, what am I going to call it? And I have this very specific moment that I can remember where I had a client, and I remember he was in a preschool, and he was struggling with something. And then one day he got it. Yes. And he looked at me and he said, I did it. And I looked at him and I said, you did it. And I visualized neurons connecting in his brain and his brain like firing off and him being like, bzz, like I got it.
Yes.
Right? And so my original name was Connect the Dots Education. And the image that I wanted was of the neurons connecting in the brain.
Okay.
That was the original name. Then I got a really nasty phone call from someone being like, you took my name, blah, blah. And I was like, your name was not copyrighted. I had no idea. And I had not copyrighted the name either. So I had to change the name after this really unpleasant phone call. And then I went back to the drawing board. And I sat there with Ronan, my husband.
Who's amazing, by the way, guys.
Thank you. And I had an incredible analyst. Her name was Shari. Her name is Shari. Her name was not, but it is still Shari, working with me. And we were kind of brainstorming her ideas, my ideas, his ideas. And I believe Ronan, because I speak so much about play and kids learning through play and taking out this like concept of DTT from people's brain and allowing kids to be and learn how they learn.
Yes, in the moment.
Which is where the Play Base came up. It was on a list. We had sent the list out to different people, like family members, friends, to vote on their favorite. And it was the first choice.
Yay.
So that's where it came from. It came from my deep-rooted belief that children can, and should learn through play.
I agree.
What's interesting about it is that I started in this field focusing just on children. But as you know, working in a school and working with families, the work doesn't start and end with children. It goes into working with the incredible adults that live with them, work with them, interact with them, build their environments, build their contingencies, their life, the boundaries, the way in which we live. It's actually framed around the adults. And so I'm working on kind of like rebranding, not the name, but this image of the Play Base as being like a daycare. Exactly what you're saying, to being a place for families, professionals, children, everyone alike to come to learn. Because what I am building and working to build is a multidisciplinary team that doesn't just service children, but services children and all those that love them, care for them, and support them. So whether that be a therapist, whether that be a teacher, that be a parent, a caregiver, a grandparent, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, or whoever, I want to be this hub of resources, a home, a regulating but fun environment for them to come to learn, to experience, to grow, develop, gather tools, and then go on to their independent lives and spread the light. That's the goal. So the name is staying.
Okay.
But some of the daycare-y, like young child, this is actually something I've been working on very actively, is changing a little bit of the image of the play base to being more what I want people to feel. But it did start out as this when I meet kids, what I've taught RBTs to do and BCBAs is get down and say, let's play and see what they do.
Yes.
And follow their lead and integrate with them or create space if that's what's needed. But that's the way I've met thousands of children over the years. Let's play.
Yeah.
So that's where the play base came from.
I love the idea of I get to be a big kid all over again. I think that's the fun part for me.
Oh, it's the best part. It's the best. And it's also the hardest part because you wear your adult hat. I'm the responsible one. I have to do all of this and I have to, my ego says that I need to be this way. And I'm literally leave your ego out the door, get on the floor and play.
Right.
And even if you sound ridiculous, you're doing it right.
Yes.
If you feel like you look ridiculous, you're doing it right. I remember being the only adult on a playground going down the slide, woo, and all the parents or therapists or whoever, the teachers were like, how old is she? Older than you think, ma'am.
Yes. I remember I was working at the school I was working on, just a quick little thing. And my best friend had called and he's like, what are you doing right now? I was like, I am coloring.
I love coloring.
He's like, they pay you to color? I was like, today they are.
Tomorrow I'm painting.
Yes. And I remember, I think it was 2 weeks afterwards. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm typing up stuff. He's like, you want to go back to coloring? I was like, more than you know.
It's the best.
It's the best. And of course, I was coloring, of course, pairing with a kid and, interacting with a kid. But it becomes one of the most amazing things is just being what the kid needs you to be in that moment. Yeah. I remember when I, started off, in this field, it was never leave your kid alone. You need to be with your kid.
Well, if you want to get a black eye, that's a great place to start.
And I just was just you become, like I said last time, you become the reinforcer. You need to be the person that they want to be with and be next to and different things like that. So when I think about the factor of, I get to work with him, I get to be on the floor. I don't have to, I remember, side note, and I hope we're able to say names. I remember I walked into the school and I was like, all right, well, today's going to be another day where I observe. And I remember the principal, of course, of the lower school, I don't know if I can say her name. She was like, I want you to shadow, this kid. The kid's RBT's not here. I want you to be the RBT for that kid. I was like, who? Took my book bag off and I ran over there yay! I get to do this part. But that's the greatest thing I can definitely say about, being in this field is being able to be multifaceted, where I can work with principals, I can work with teachers, I can work with parents, I can work with kids, I can, even as amazing as it is, 'cause I've been with certain companies where I could not work with my BCBA, where my BCBA was like, you do what I tell you to do, and, what you're saying doesn't matter kind of thing. But working here, it's everybody wants to hear your voice. There's always this, compassionate piece about it. But back to, not to segue over there, but over here, it is one of the greatest things to be able to impact not only one part, but every part. So when you just said that statement, I was like, yes. Yep. Exclusively here, you just heard it. Frances said this is what she's doing with the play base.
It is.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. I think there's so much to be said about the science behind how we implement it in a naturalistic way, how we implement it in a classroom, in a consulting manner. When I go and I train teachers, and I think this is important for teachers, for therapists, for parents, for leaders, for managers, for anyone in charge of anyone or anyone trying to get somebody to do something, if you know the science of ABA, that's what you're actually trying to do. And so you do ABA mindfully or not, in your parenting, in your classroom. If you understand the science of how we shape behavior, how we condition behavior, how we learn behavior, period, you use it intentionally, not as a manipulator, but because you're using it anyway. It's just a matter of, am I using it correctly or not?
Yes.
Am I understanding what I'm doing or not?
Yes.
Do I understand reinforcement or not? I went and I trained a school today, and there's apparently this whole research on reinforcement and punishment, and the use of the word is incorrect. And I train people to understand, I teach people to understand that reinforcement means a very specific thing. That's all it means. What we have been conditioned to make it mean over time, stickers, good job, high five, thumbs up, ice cream, a chocolate, a candy. That's what we think reinforcement is. But no, reinforcement is anything that follows a behavior that makes it increase in frequency or intensity over time, period. End of story. That's all that it means.
Sure.
Anything immediately following a behavior that makes that happen. But because we don't understand that, we think reinforcement means something specific because that's what society has taught us. And so teaching people simple things like that, like I want you to understand that. So now I want you to think about any behavior that is increasing over time. What's followed that behavior? Is it a behavior you want to see or not? Is it a safe or dangerous behavior? Is it a socially appropriate behavior or not? Is it functional for that child or not, or that person? Is it helpful or not? If it's not, we have to make a change. Proactively, reactively. Like there are so many things we can do. I won't go into the science for everyone. I'm going to actually finish. Sorry, I started on this whole tangent as I just came from a school. I'm going to finish with asking the same question I always ask.
Okay.
What would you leave our listeners with? Something to ask themselves or to sit with. Something for them to just sit with and think about as a way of ending the show.
I would want to say, how are you treating people? I know that sounds so cliche, but
no,
it's a really big thing on how we treat people, what we say to people, how we react to people. Like, whose life, what life are you like impacting or destroying? Like, I think that would be the question or the statement that I would leave people with.
And I would go as far as to extend that to how you treat people you know, how you treat people you don't.
Yes.
How you treat people you interact with every day. What do you say internally to yourself about people? Because our internal monologue, dialogue, whatever is happening in there impacts the way we behave, impacts the energy we put out. How do you treat people? I'm going to sit with that one today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and soul for this incredibly powerful and meaningful conversation, Jennifer. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.